The stem of my glass slipped between my fingers, slick with condensation, and fell. Crystal against marble. A sharp, ringing shatter that cut through the hum of the banquet hall. N01 noticed. N01 turned, because every pair of eyes was locked on him. My father. He stood at the head of the long oak table, posture straight, chin lifted, a hand pressed firm on my brother's shoulder as if sealing a vow. His voice carried, deliberate and heavy, the kind of voice that left no room for error. My son deserves this more. He has the vision, the strength, the bloodline. Tonight, we honor him. Applause broke like thunder. Forks tapped against wine glasses. A ripple of laughter swelled through the room, thick with admiration. People leaned in toward my father, smiling, nodding, eager to be caught in his orbit, and I sat there, invisible, like a ghost haunting a room I helped build. My name is Elena Carter. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been erased in your own story? The chandelier above us hummed with light, each golden crystal trembling with the weight of my silence. My hands burned as I clenched them in my lap, fingernails carving crescent moons into my palms. My lips pulled into a smile so sharp it could have cut my throat. Across the table, Michael, my brother, basked in the glory that wasn't his. His grin stretched wide, a predator's grin, as if he had earned this coronation, but this wasn't his victory. It was mine, every deal that resurrected our collapsing branches. Every sleepless night drafting proposals. Every expansion plan that tripled our company's value in less than a year, that was me. My ideas. My sacrifice. My blood, and with a single sentence, my father stole it. My son deserves this more. Do you know what it feels like when someone drives a knife into your chest slowly enough that the pain blooms before the blood comes? That was the moment. I watched my legacy stripped and handed to him like a crown on a silver platter, and I realized something chilling. It wasn't just favoritism. It was erasure. The board members smiled politely, clapping along, but I saw the flicker of unease in their eyes. The same unease I had seen before when my father's word rewrote truth. A look that said, we know she built this. But we will not cross him. The champagne bubbles burned down my throat like acid. I wanted to stand. To scream. To tell them the truth until my voice split. But silence can be louder than rage. And that night, my silence was screaming. The CEO sat 2 seats down, his silver tie catching the chandelier's glow. He was quiet through the applause, his expression unreadable, but his eyes were sharp. They didn't follow my father. They found me. Held me, and for the first time that night, I felt seen. Then he moved, his chair scraped softly against the marble floor as he rose to his feet. The applause faltered, conversation snapped into silence, the air shifted, an invisible weight pressing down on every chest in the room. He lifted his glass, his voice steady, deliberate, slicing clean through the tension. There's been a mistake. Every head turned, the color drained from Michael's face, but my father tightened his grip on his shoulder as if to anchor him. The CEO didn't look at them. He looked only at me. The name I came here to honor is Elena. The silence that followed was deafening. Applause died in throats. Glasses hovered midair. Eyes darted between me, my father, and the man who had just shattered his decree. The world tilted. The ground shifted, and in that silence, I felt it. The first crack in the empire my father thought he controlled, the first spark of something he could never smother, because this wasn't just about recognition anymore. It was about truth. And truth, once spoken aloud, spreads like fire. I sat there, every nerve alive, every breath searing, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The room froze silent, and I knew this was only the beginning. The silence was alive. It pulsed through the banquet hall like a second heartbeat, every person present caught between instinct and fear. Forks hovered midair, champagne glasses trembled in frozen hands, and I swear even the chandelier above seemed to hold its breath. The CEO's words hung there, impossible to swallow. The name I came here to honor is Elena. Me. For a moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing the ground beneath your feet was finally breaking away. My father's smile faltered first. Not fully, he was too practiced for that, but the corners twitched, his jaw tightened, and the warmth drained from his eyes. His grip on Michael's shoulder hardened, turning from a father's embrace into a manacle. Michael blinked rapidly. Confusion and anger flickering across his face like a storm caught between lightning strikes. He forced out a laugh, sharp and brittle. Funny, right? A toast to my sister too. But the CEO didn't laugh. He didn't even look at him. His glass remained lifted, eyes locked on me, steady and unwavering. Elena Carter, he repeated. His voice clear, final. She is the reason this company is standing. Her vision, her strategy, her work. Without her, we wouldn't be celebrating at all tonight. The applause didn't return, instead, a murmur. Uneasy. Uneven. People shifting. In their seats. Darting glances at one another, at me, at my father, and in that murmur, I felt something electric crawl down my spine. Recognition, not loud. Not unanimous. But real. I sat straighter, the sting in my chest softening into something sharper. This was my moment. My truth, torn from silence and spoken aloud in a room designed to erase me, but my father, he leaned in toward the CEO, his voice low, his smile forced but dangerous. With respect, he said, this night is about succession. About family. Legacy. My son, the CEO cut him off. Your son may carry the bloodline, he said. But Elena carries the company. It was a blade slipped between ribs. And my father felt it, for the first time in my life, I saw it, a flicker of fear. Behind his eyes. Michael's hand slammed against the table, rattling silverware. Are you kidding me? He barked. She's not built for this. She doesn't have the. I turned my head slowly, locking eyes with him. The what, Michael? I asked. My voice was calm, measured, but every syllable was razor sharp. The intelligence? The deals? The results you've been taking credit for? The silence deepened, and for once, he couldn't meet my gaze. I leaned back in my chair, my lips curling just enough to show him I knew the truth. Knew my power. My father's fist tightened against the tablecloth. His voice, when it came, was a low growl meant to reclaim control. This is not the place for this. But the CEO didn't sit down. And neither did the board members. One by one, they turned toward me. Some cautious. Some ashamed. Some with quiet relief painted across their faces, as though they had been waiting for someone to finally say it. Elena, one of them murmured, almost too softly to catch. But it was there. My name, and in that moment, my father's empire cracked a little deeper. I could feel his fury burning toward me, hot enough to sear, but beneath it, something darker of fear, because he knew what I was just realizing. This wasn't just about the company. This wasn't just about a toast, this was about truth clawing its way into the light. I stood. My chair scraped against the marble, the sound sharp enough to slice through the last of the murmurs. Every I followed as I lifted my glass, not trembling, not unsure. To the truth, I said. My voice didn't waver. Not once. The CEO raised his glass back to me. To Elena. A few others followed. Not all. Not most. But enough, and in that fractured toast, I tasted something stronger than champagne. I tasted war, because my father wasn't going to forget this night. He wasn't going to forgive it. And neither was I. The empire he had stolen from me? I would burn it to the ground before I let him bury me again. This was the night the tables turned, this was the night the revenge began. The banquet ended, but the silence followed me. Whispers trailed in my wake as I walked out of the hall, my heels clicking against marble like a drumbeat. My name was no longer invisible. It was alive. Heavy. A stone dropped into still water, rippling through every corner of the company. Elena Carter, I heard someone murmur as I passed. Elena saved us. But behind the praise, I heard the sharper whispers too. Her father will never allow this. She won't survive what's coming. And I knew they were right. The moment the last guest filtered out, I felt the grip on my arm. Strong. Possessive. My father's fingers dug into my skin like claws as he yanked me toward a side corridor, away from the golden lights and cameras. Michael followed, his face flushed, his jaw tight with the anger of a man exposed. The door slammed shut behind us, sealing us into a smaller room, a conference chamber lined with leather chairs and glass walls that reflected our fractured faces back at us. The mask was gone. My father's voice dropped into a low, venomous growl. What the hell was that? I pulled my arm free, straightening my spine, refusing to flinch. The truth, I said simply. His eyes darkened. Don't play games with me. Michael shoved past him, his voice loud, desperate to fill the space. You humiliated me. In front of the board, in front of everyone. Do you have any idea what you've done? I turned slowly, meeting his glare with calm steel. What I've done, I said, is stop you from stealing what isn't yours. His face went red, his hands curling into fists at his sides. For a second, I thought he might strike me, but my father's hand shot out, gripping his shoulder to hold him back. Not out of protection for me. Out of calculation. You think this changes anything? My father asked, his voice low, deliberate. A toast? A name? Elena, you're naive if you believe words make you stronger. I stepped closer, my heels clicking against the polished floor, my shadow merging with his. No, I said. Not words. Results. The ones you tried to bury. His nostrils flared, his jaw flexing. For the first time, I saw his control slipping. You think these people respect you? They don't, he hissed. They respect me. They fear me. And as long as I sit at the head of this company, your name means nothing. Michael smirked, emboldened by his father's words. She'll always be second best, he sneered. The little sister who thought she could play CEO. I turned to him, my voice soft, deadly calm. Second best doesn't build an empire. Second best doesn't triple profits in 12 months. Second best doesn't save a sinking ship while you're too busy drinking and screwing your way through. New York. His smirk faltered. My father's glare sharpened. Enough, he snapped. You will not speak to him like that. I'll speak the truth, I said, my voice steady. And you can't silence it anymore. The air crackled between us, heavy with the weight of old wounds and new war. Then his tone shifted. Softer. More dangerous. Elena, listen to me. I had heard that voice before. The one he used in boardrooms when he wanted to manipulate. When he wanted to trap people into thinking they were choosing their own fate. You don't want this fight, he murmured. The company, the power, it comes with enemies. You're not built for that. You're emotional. Reckless. You think one night makes you untouchable? I tilted my head, studying him the way I'd studied hostile clients. No, I said. Not untouchable. Just unstoppable. For a second, his expression cracked. Just for a second, then his hand slammed down on the table, the sound echoing off the glass walls. If you make me your enemy, he growled, I will destroy you. The words hung in the air like smoke. Michael's grin returned, ugly and triumphant. You don't stand a chance, Elena. You've always needed him. And when he cuts you off, when he leaves you with nothing, you'll come crawling back. I stepped toward him, close enough that he had to tilt his head back to meet my eyes. No, Michael, I whispered. You're the one who's nothing without him. And I'm about to prove it. I brushed past them both, my pulse steady, my heart a drum of defiance in my chest. The door opened to the dim hallway beyond, the last remnants of the banquet still echoing in the distance. I didn't look back, because I knew what they thought tonight was an accident. A fluke. A toast gone wrong, but I knew better. This was the spark. The moment the fire began. And I was going to burn their empire to the ground, not out of rage. Not out of spite, but because sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about justice. And justice, when it finally comes, is always beautiful. The morning after the banquet, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Messages. Emails. Missed calls. Half the board wanted clarification. The other half wanted reassurance. Some congratulated me in careful whispers, while others warned me to be cautious. And buried in between were threats, veiled, faceless, reminding me my father's shadow was long. I sat at my desk. The city humming beneath my window, and scrolled through the chaos with steady hands. My father thought fear was my weakness. But fear sharpens people like me. Fear makes you deliberate, and I was done being erased. The door opened without a knock. It was Rachel, my assistant, the only person who had stayed loyal even when loyalty meant risking her job. Her eyes were wide, her voice low. They're trying to lock you out. I leaned back in my chair. Already? She nodded. IT got orders this morning. They want your access revoked. Your files, your accounts, everything. I almost laughed. Of course. My father always moved fast, striking before his opponent. Even realized the game had begun, but this time, I was already playing. Let them, I said. I backed everything up weeks ago. Rachel blinked, then a slow smile curved across her face. You knew this was coming. I knew my father better than he knew me, I replied, because months before this night, I'd felt it, the subtle shifts, the sidelining, the way my credit vanished from press releases while Michael's name surfaced. I had seen the betrayal coming like thunder on the horizon, and I had prepared. Rachel placed a folder on my desk. You'll want to see this. Inside were receipts, expense reports, hotel bookings, transfers hidden under shell accounts that weren't hidden well enough. Michael's signature mistakes, careless, arrogant. I flipped through page after page, my pulse steady, my mind clicking into place like gears in a machine. Fraud, Rachel whispered. Enough to bury him. I looked up at her. No. Not bury. Expose. Because revenge isn't about destruction for destruction's sake. It's about letting the truth breathe until it chokes the liar who tried to hide it. That afternoon, I made my first call, not to the board. Not to the press. To Thomas Green, the CFO. A man my father underestimated, a man who always sat quietly at the edge of meetings, speaking little, observing everything. When his voice came through the line, calm and precise, I didn't waste time. I know you've seen the numbers, I said. Michael's numbers don't add up. I have proof. There was silence on the other end. A dangerous silence. Then, finally, you want allies. I want the truth on record, I said. He exhaled slowly. Your father won't forgive this. He already declared war, I replied. I'm just fighting back. Another pause. Then, send me the files. I hung up, a quiet satisfaction settling in my chest. One ally. The first piece on the board. By nightfall, whispers began to circulate again. Subtle at first, like smoke. Slipping under doors. Questions about Michael's expense accounts. Questions about projects that existed only on paper. Questions my father could silence in public, but not forever, and that was the key. Not to strike once, but to bleed him slowly. That evening, Rachel and I sat in the dim glow of my office, the city lights glittering outside like watchful eyes. She leaned against the desk, arms crossed, studying me. "You know this isn't just business anymore, right?" she said. "This is family. Blood. Once you start, there's no undoing it." I looked at her, my reflection caught in the glass window behind her, calm, steady, unflinching. "I'm not undoing anything," I said. "I'm reclaiming what was mine all along." And yet, beneath my calm, a truth burned. This wasn't just about the company. It was about the years of silence. The nights I stayed late while Michael partied. The deals I closed while he signed his name. The way my father looked at me, not as his daughter, not as his heir, but as a placeholder. They thought they could erase me, but you cannot erase fire, you can only contain it, until it burns through everything. At midnight, I sent the files. Every receipt. Every hidden transfer. Every lie. The next morning, Michael's name would no longer mean heir. It would mean fraud, and this was only the beginning. The storm broke 3 days later. It started as a whisper in the financial columns, tiny headlines buried under market reports, Carter and Company under scrutiny for accounting irregularities. By noon, it spread like fire. Every outlet had it. Fraud. Embezzlement. Millions disappearing through shell accounts. And one name flashing in every headline, Michael Carter. The empire my father had tried to hand him was unraveling, thread by thread, live on every screen. I sat in my office, blinds drawn, the glow of my laptop washing over my face as I scrolled through article after article. Each word was a wound he had inflicted on himself, and each wound was a victory for me. The phone buzzed nonstop. Journalists. Board members. Investors. All demanding answers. Rachel slipped in and out, screening calls, her voice calm while her eyes blazed with the thrill of watching the house of cards fall. "He's trending," she said, almost laughing. "Not the good kind. #FraudSon is everywhere." I didn't smile. Not yet, because I knew this wasn't victory. This was exposure. And exposure makes desperate men dangerous. The knock came at 4:17 p.m. sharp, insistent, like the fist of a man who had never been denied entry in his life. My father. He strode in without waiting for permission, Michael trailing behind him like a wounded animal. His face was pale, his tie loose, his eyes bloodshot. The headlines had stripped him. My father slammed the door shut. The air thickened instantly. "You," he hissed. I closed my laptop slowly, folding my hands on the desk. "Calm against the storm." "Me," I said. Michael's voice cracked as he barked. "You set me up. I exposed you," I cut in. "There's a difference." His face twisted, red and ugly, but I didn't flinch. My father leaned forward, both hands pressed flat on my desk, his eyes boring into mine. "You think this makes you powerful? You think dragging your own family through the mud will earn you respect?" I met his gaze steadily. "I don't want respect. I want the truth. And the truth is, I built this company. Michael stole from it." His jaw clenched. "You're destroying us." "No," I whispered. "You destroyed yourself when you chose him over me." The silence after that was thick enough to choke on. Michael paced, muttering curses, until finally he spun on me. "You don't get it, Elena. Dad's the king. I'm the heir. You're nothing." I rose to my feet, each step deliberate until I stood inches from him. "Nothing?" I said softly. "Look outside, Michael. Look at the screens. Look at the headlines. Who's nothing now?" His hand twitched at his side, a flash of violence flickering through him, but my father's voice snapped like a whip. "Enough." Michael froze. My father's eyes never left mine. "You've declared war on this family," he said. "Fine. Then you are no longer my daughter." The words should have broken me. But instead, they lit something inside me, because he thought disowning me stripped me of power. He didn't realize. He had just freed me. I leaned in, close enough for him to see the fire in my eyes. "Then watch," I whispered. "Watch what your nothing daughter can do." I walked past them both, out of the office, into the roar of the newsroom beyond where every screen carried Michael's downfall. The world was watching. The world was listening, and I was just getting started. By the next morning, the stock had plummeted. Investors pulled out. Analysts predicted collapse. My father held press conferences, his voice firm but his eyes frantic, insisting the allegations were exaggerated, that Carter and Company was stronger than ever. But the cracks showed. Every denial made him look weaker. Every lie exposed him further. Behind the cameras, I moved silently, meeting with board members in hushed tones, sliding proof across tables, whispering truths they already suspected but were too afraid to say aloud. And with every conversation, I felt the tide shift. Some still clung to my father, blinded by fear or loyalty. But others, enough others, began to look at me the way the CEO had that night in the banquet hall, not as a daughter. Not as a placeholder. As a leader. At midnight, Rachel and I sat surrounded by files, our office lit only by desk lamps and the flicker of the city beyond. She pushed another stack toward me, her voice hushed but urgent. Your father's moving fast. He's trying to cut deals behind the scenes. He's pulling every string he has. I nodded slowly. Let him pull. She frowned. Why? Because the harder he pulls, I said, the faster the rope will snap. For the first time in years, I felt it, control. Not just of the company. Of my fate. My father had cast me out. But I wasn't alone, and soon, he'd learn what it meant to underestimate a daughter who refused to disappear. The war was no longer silent. It was public. And the world was watching every move. The counterattack came fast. My father had always taught me that the best defense was annihilation. And now, with Michael exposed and the company bleeding, he turned his fury toward me. It started with whispers, articles planted in tabloids. Anonymous sources painting me as unstable, erratic, vindictive. Photographs of me leaving late-night meetings with headlines twisted to sound like scandal. By day 2, the whispers became headlines. Carter daughter sabotages. Family legacy. Power-hungry heir sparks collapse. Every screen carried my name, not as savior, but as traitor. Rachel stormed into my office, throwing the papers onto my desk. They're trying to crucify you, she snapped. He's got PR firms, journalists, influencers, half the city is spinning his version. I scanned the headlines calmly, each like cutting but not killing. He's desperate, I said. And desperation always shows. But inside, I felt the tremor, because lies have power. Lies spread faster than truth. And my father knew exactly where to strike. By the end of the week, my name was poison in investors' mouths. The stock fell. Harder. The board called an emergency session. Without me. I knew what that meant. He was tightening the noose. That night, the summons came. A message, short and sharp, conference room. Midnight. Alone. Rachel begged me not to go. It's a trap, she warned. I know, I said. And I went anyway. The conference room was dark, the city lights casting fractured shadows across the glass walls. He was waiting, seated at the head of the long table like a king on a throne, Michael beside him, pale and bitter. Elena, my father said, his voice calm now. Too calm. He gestured to the chair opposite. Sit. I stayed standing. You wanted to see me? Say what you came to say. His eyes narrowed, but he leaned back, folding his hands. You're clever. I'll give you that. You've managed to wound us. But wounds heal. And when they do, the body comes back stronger. Michael smirked weakly beside him. You're finished, Elena. Nobody believes you. Dad made sure of it. I tilted my head. Funny. Last I checked, fraud charges don't vanish because Daddy writes a few press releases. Michael's smirk faltered, but my father spoke over him. You think this company will ever let you lead? You think men who've spent decades under me will follow a daughter who turned on her family? I stepped closer, the glow of the city framing me in the glass behind. They don't have to follow me, I said. They just have to stop following you. His jaw tightened. You don't know what you're playing with. Don't I? I shot back. Because right now, every lie you spread makes me louder. Every smear campaign shows the world how afraid you are of me. And fear, I leaned forward, letting my words sink in, is respect wearing a mask. For the first time, his composure cracked. His eyes hardened into ice. If you walk out of here tonight, Elena, you walk out with nothing. No family. No name. No future. I smiled faintly. Then I'll build one you can't destroy. The silence stretched, sharp and brittle. Michael slammed his fist on the table. She's bluffing, Dad. She doesn't have the guts. I turned. My gaze to him, slow and deliberate. You're already drowning, Michael. I don't need guts to watch you sink. He lunged to his feet, but my father's hand shot out, stopping him. Not out of love. Out of calculation. My father's voice dropped lower, colder. You will regret this. Maybe, but as I turned and walked out of that room, I realized something powerful. I wasn't afraid anymore, because when someone takes everything, your family, your name, your safety, they forget what that leaves you with. Nothing to lose, and a person with nothing to lose is the most dangerous kind of enemy. The next morning, the headlines grew worse. Leaked stories of mental instability, rumors of breakdowns, whispers about affairs with married executives. All false. All designed to bury me, but behind the noise, something else was shifting. Thomas Green, the CFO, called. His voice was steady, firm. The board is wavering, he said. Your father's grip isn't as strong as he thinks. They want results, not scandals. Keep pushing. I hung up, the fire in my chest burning hotter than ever. They thought they were destroying me. But they were building me, and when I rose, it would be from the ashes of the empire they tried to bury me under. This wasn't the end. It was the turning point, and I would make them choke on every lie they ever spoke. The night before the board meeting, I didn't sleep. I watched the city lights fade into dawn, my reflection hollowed in the glass. The storm my father had unleashed had nearly swallowed me whole, but storms can clear skies too. This was my moment. Rachel sat across from me, her eyes bloodshot, stacks of documents spread across the table like weapons. "Are you ready?" she whispered. I looked at her, steady. "No. I'm beyond ready. Because revenge isn't about timing. It's about precision." And by morning, precision would be the knife that split truth from lies. The boardroom was thick with silence when I walked in, every chair filled, every suit watching, their eyes sharp with suspicion. At the head of the table sat my father, jaw set, Michael beside him like a shadow clinging to light. "Elena," my father said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You weren't invited." I dropped the leather case onto the polished wood. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "Then let's call this an intervention." Murmurs rippled through the room. Some leaned forward, hungry. Others glanced nervously at my father. He straightened, trying to cage me with his stare. "You've embarrassed this family enough. Leave." I ignored him. Slowly, deliberately, I opened the case and slid the first file across the table. "Expense reports," I said. "Shell companies. Transfers linked to Michael's signature." Gasps. Papers shuffled. Eyes darted. I slid another. "Offshore accounts. Funds siphoned out of Carter projects. Millions, gone." The room grew heavier with each word, my father's silence slicing through it. Then I dropped the final folder, the one Rachel had nearly bled to find: fraudulent partnerships. Fake vendors. Contracts signed by my brother that never existed. I leaned forward, my voice cutting the air. "You trusted him because my father told you to. You applauded him because my father paraded him. But here's the truth: Michael isn't just unfit. He's a liability. And if you continue to protect him, every one of you goes down with him." The room erupted. Voices clashed, chairs scraped, papers flew. Michael slammed his hand against the table, his face red. "Lies. All of it. She's making this up too." "Enough," snapped Thomas Green, the CFO, his voice slicing through the chaos. All heads turned. He rose slowly, adjusting his glasses, eyes steady on the documents in front of him. "I've verified these files," he said. "Every transaction. Every account. She's not lying." Silence, real silence, the kind that settles when truth can no longer be ignored. My father's mask cracked, just barely, but I saw it, the flicker of rage, of calculation failing. "You think you've won," he hissed at me, his voice low, dangerous. "You've doomed this family." I met his stare head on. "No. You doomed it when you chose him over me." The board erupted again, this time with questions directed not at me, but at my father. His control, his reign, was slipping between his fingers like sand, and in that moment, I understood something profound. This wasn't just revenge. This was reclamation. Every lie they'd told about me was unraveling. Every shadow they'd tried to bury me in was now a spotlight burning on them. Rachel's eyes met mine across the room. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The fire in her gaze said everything: we did it. But I wasn't done, not yet, because exposing them in this room wasn't enough. The world had to see. As the meeting dissolved into chaos, I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. The files weren't just in those folders. They were online now, encrypted, time-locked, ready to go public. With one press, every journalist, every investor, every rival in the industry would know the truth. I looked back at my father, his face pale with fury. "This isn't just about a company," I said. "It's about justice." And then I pressed send. The sound of the notification pinging in my own inbox was like a gunshot of freedom. Michael's face drained of color. My father's fists clenched wide against the table, the board's phones buzzed, screens lighting up, their expressions shifting from confusion to shock to inevitability. There was no going back now. The Carter Empire wasn't falling. It was burning, and from its ashes, I would rise. The morning after the leak, the city woke to fire. Every headline carried my brother's name, not as heir, but as fraud. Michael Carter linked to multi-million-dollar embezzlement. Carter family legacy in jeopardy amid scandal. Board demands leadership overhaul after leaked files. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Investors, journalists, former allies who had once ignored me now scrambled for my voice. But I ignored them all. Because this day wasn't about the noise outside. It was about the reckoning inside. The emergency board meeting was called for noon. By 11, the lobby was swarming with cameras, reporters shouting questions I didn't bother answering. I walked past them, silent, head high, their flashes bursting like fireworks in the dark. Inside, the air was electric. The board sat tense, papers in hand, faces pale. My father was already at the table, his jaw like stone, Michael beside him, hollow-eyed, his arrogance eaten away overnight. At the far end of the room sat the CEO, Mr. Harris. A man who had built the company alongside my father decades ago. A man my father had underestimated, dismissing him as too cautious, too old. But power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits. The meeting began in silence. Mr. Harris cleared his throat, his voice even. After reviewing the evidence presented, it is clear the Carter family is facing a crisis of leadership. Fraud cannot be excused. Reputation cannot be salvaged by denial. All eyes shifted to Michael. His hands trembled as he tried to speak. This is taken out of context, enough. The single word silenced him. Mr. Harris turned his gaze to my father. You knew, he said. You endorsed him. You vouched for him while this company bled. My father's face flushed crimson. I built this empire. Without me, none of you would have jobs, offices, futures. And now you want to turn on me. Because of her. The word dripped like venom as he pointed at me. I didn't flinch, because the truth was already alive in this room. Mr. Harris rose slowly from his chair. His voice carried the weight of decades, the kind that couldn't be bought. Or silenced. Yesterday, you paraded your son in front of us and told us he deserved this more. You told us to clap. To accept. To obey. The room stilled, and then he looked directly at me. But today, he said, his voice firm, unwavering, I stand for the one who chose truth over silence. Integrity over loyalty. Strength over fear. He turned to the board, his next words. Sharp as glass. My vote is for Elena Carter. The room froze, for one breath. The world itself seemed to stop. Then, like a dam breaking, voices erupted. Some in shock, some in agreement, some in protest. But the tide was shifting, unmistakable, unstoppable. Hands rose. Votes cast. One after another, the balance tipping in my favor. Michael shouted, his voice cracking. This is a setup. She planted it all. She's lying. But nobody listened. My father slammed his fists against the table, his fury rattling the glass. You'll regret this. All of you. She's not ready, she's not. I stood, my chair sliding back in perfect calm. Ready? I said softly. I've been ready my entire life. You just never looked long enough to see it. The last hand went up. The count was undeniable. It was over. My father's empire, the dynasty he had sacrificed love and truth to protect, had slipped from his grasp in front of the very people he once commanded. Mr. Harris straightened, his voice steady. Elena Carter will assume leadership effective immediately. The gavel struck the table. Final. Absolute. The room erupted, not in applause, not in chaos, but in silence. A silence sharper than any cheer, heavier than any scream. The silence of history being rewritten. I turned to my father. For the first time, he looked small. A king stripped of his crown. You told the world your son deserved this more, I whispered. But the world chose differently. Michael's face crumpled, pale and broken. My father's eyes burned with rage, but beneath it, I saw something else. Something he'd never admit, fear, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one afraid. I gathered my files, my hands steady, my heart calm. As I walked toward the door, the flash of cameras already waiting outside, I felt the weight of everything lift, not because the fight was over, but because I had won it my way, with truth. With fire. With patience sharpened into a blade. The doors opened, light flooding in. Reporters surged forward, microphones thrust out, voices clashing in a storm, but all I heard was silence, the silence of justice, the silence of victory, the silence of a story finally finished. I looked straight into the sea of cameras, my voice clear, steady, unshakable.